So what you're saying in that symbols kill symbols, the soldier who goes to battle is not out there to kill another person. They are out there to kill the representation portrayed by the other side.
They're doing it unconsciously. They're doing it in a trance, or else they would just say, no thank you.
Well,
for example, George Bush or anyone else who promotes wars that are based on unconscious projections.
Well, the presidents may be going to war because of political reasons, but the person who actually goes out to the battlefield is going out there with a direction that's inculcated. They're taught that this symbol is what they're out there to destroy.
Absolutely.
Somewhat like a guard dog is taught to attack at a certain command.
My grandmother used to say to me, be whatever you want, a writer, an actor, a dancer, a singer, a philosopher. For my mother, I had to be nothing, the scum of the earth. You should only croak, you should only drop dead. What did God do to ever curse me to have such a nothing for a son? Ha! And I was ridiculed for my creativity, so I got other labels as well. So what happened is, if I succeeded for my grandmother at being a success at anything, I failed for my mother. If I succeed for my mother at failing, and then what happens is, and this is the area that was the biggest trance for me, if I succeed for my mother, I fail for my grandmother. If I succeed for my grandmother, I fail for my mother, and I had a double blind. And
where are you in that?
No, I wasn't home. Nobody was home. Because there was no one home for my mother. She was labeled the devil and the jinx because she wasn't a boy to replace a dead son. My aunt was called the pretty one and the clever one, and when my grandfather committed suicide at age 23 because my mother was not a boy to replace a dead son. He was a playwright and actor, by the way. My grandmother married a widower and had my Aunt Gert, and Gert was called the angel, the diamond, good as gold one, the most wonderful person to walk the face of this earth. So each of my parents were scripted into roles compared to their siblings. My father was the nothing compared to his brother, who was the brilliant one, who was going to be the success. And even though my father's mother would say, I love my children equally like the fingers of my hand, this was part of her manipulative trance that she was in. And she didn't. She glorified my uncle. She put my father down. So the soldiers you're talking about, did they have their own family scripts that were imposed on them, that the great-grandparents passed on to their parents, and their parents passed on to them? If you can picture standing at a movie theater, inside the movie theater, with your back to the screen, if anyone can do this, and their back is to the screen, the white screen, the projector is projecting images onto them, and let's say each person who's listening right now pictures all their siblings alongside them. If the projector, which has film in it, if the projector is their mother, and the film is everything the mother learned from her childhood, she is going to be projecting onto each child a different facet of herself, so that each child has a different mother, even though they're siblings.
Metaphorically, depending on where they're standing as a projector.
That's right. Well, whatever the mother at that time in her life has to project up. So there's no difference from a soldier who has been symbolized by his or her parents to be whatever the parent needs them to be at that moment compared to their other siblings. They're in a trance. We're all in a trance until we begin to come out of it.
Were you an only child?
Only child, but that's where I got the double bind, the double messages. My grandmother would call my mother the devil and the jinx and give her the cold shoulder, and my mother had to take that hostility out on me in anger that her father abandoned her because she wasn't a boy. And for my grandmother, I had to try to be as healing for the world and understand humanity. She used to say to me, by the way, throughout my childhood, my grandmother did, the oilam is the goylam, which means the group is a mechanical creature, the group is a fool, the group is a machine, and to the degree you're hypnotized into being part of any group, you're trapped. You're in a trance.
The
Now,
mob
before-
mentality.
That's right. Which back to what you were saying about the soldiers and George Bush, for example. Although he and I haven't had an opportunity to talk personally, my understanding is he was the no good son who had no depth, who was a bad seed, a troublemaker, not bright, compared to Jeb, who was brilliant, who was scholarly, who was athletic, who was noble, and who was going to be the president of the United States. And so George did a screw you to his family by becoming president, but unconsciously lived out the you can't do anything right script. And
You sure showed them, though.
yeah, he sure showed them, right?
I'm gonna become
And-
president.
Right, and all the
That'll
people
learn ya.
who voted for him knew him to the degree they knew themselves, which meant how many of us were asleep. And I have dual citizenship, and I felt the need to. I'm just so delighted in terms of it feels like a miracle that the Democrats got in again. As they did, and my sense is Nancy Pelosi, who I've met and shared time with, who's awake. She's awake. She's insightful, and I'm hopeful that many of the Democrats will then bring about some kind of change, because I believe the Iranians, all they want is some kind of recognition and acceptance of being an equal. They want to be related to as an equal, and in the card game, nobody's anybody's equal. But when you know you're the Joker with 52 cards, we are each other's equal. And that's
Are
terrifying.
we able to hear a soundbite of that?
State Joker is now on its way. State Joker is now here to stay. The Joker is wild, the universal charm, and the Joker doesn't have to know the words to be heard or the way to play. The State Joker is for you and me.